Welcome to the light, and today we're shedding light on Blake's court documents, which are the facts, and they are not anything that's supposedly. And while Phoenix's face is here, which honestly there's no reason for it to be here, but she inserted herself into this, so that's where we're at this point. Honestly, I would have posted this sooner, but my daughter collected some germs like it was Pokemon before the long weekend and brought them home. So I tried to take a numbing throat lozenge before this, but I've been trying to recover all weekend. But here we are on the first video of this. So what I'm going to do is I love court documents because they are factual. You cannot dispute them. These are what happened at the time. This is from the authorities. So this is how I'm going to go about it. In this video, we're going to cover the first incident in 2009 that I have a document on. And we're also going to cover the major incident that put Blaec in prison for these 13 years, and he's on parole for 2 years now. And these initial documents are not that long, but it's going to give the full details, okay? And the charges as well for the 2012 incident that put him in prison for 13 years. Now, I will make another video that will cover the appeal that Blaec's lawyers submitted against his 13-year sentence. Now, that is actually a much longer document. However, within that document, there's a lot much more information, which sheds light on what they are trying to fight against and ultimately what the Supreme Court decided, which we do know, of course, they did not win that appeal. Again, I'm a fair person, right? Let's see what all of the evidence was. Why did they try to fight it? Now, do I have my own opinions on this? Abso-freaking-lutely. I have a lot to say about this whole situation. A lot. I'm going to withhold those opinions for another time, a separate video in and of itself, okay? But I will share these documents, and in between this too, I have other cases that I would like to cover that are real time that are going on right now. But I will sprinkle these in so that we can get facts out. Now, I will say this at the time I'm recording this, which is Tuesday, February 17th at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It is clear that their joint account has disappeared from TikTok. I am not surprised, and hopefully this is something possibly permanent, and it is for the best for everybody, for us and for them. I would not be surprised if his PO was contacted and they were informed to probably take it down. Again, I'll probably save those comments for that personal video, but it would be for the best. Now, I hope me reading these documents helps to shed light on these scenarios and exactly what happened in these instances, because while I understand that a case has been made that there was nothing physical that happened, there are a multitude of victims that are walking out there right now in society that are dealing with trauma mentally and emotionally from the events that almost took place. So I hope that this is for them something that recognizes that this was not a victimless crime. So let's get into it. We're going to start in the year 2009. So this is from the offense incident report from the Polk County Sheriff's Office. This is from the narrative. It states, on October 8th, 2009, at about 1951 hours, I was dispatched to 1560 East 473rd Road, Bolivar, Polk County, Missouri, due to Patricia Lammers finding a self-exit note from her son, Blaec Lammers, and a missing kitchen knife. While en route, I was advised that Patricia Lammers had located the vehicle Blaec Lammers was driving in the parking lot of Walmart Supercenter, located at Springfield Ave in Bolivar, Polk County, Missouri. I was also advised that William Lammers was en route to Walmart as well. So they're speaking of his mother and father. I then drove to Walmart and made contact with Patricia Lammers in the parking lot. Patricia Lammers stated that Blaec Lammers had an appointment today with his psychologist, and he has been acting different since then. Patricia Lammers stated that Blaec Lammers may be armed with a large kitchen knife. She looked in his vehicle, but couldn't find it. I then spoke to Boulevard Police Officer Hendrickson and requested that his department watch the exits, and I would have Blaec Lammers paged overhead. Patricia Lammers showed all of the officers a photo of Blaec Lammers. At this time, I entered the store and went to the customer service desk and requested the overhead page. Shortly after the overhead page went out, William Lammers approached the customer service desk with Blaec Lammers. Blaec Lammers was holding a Halloween mask in his right hand. I asked Blaec Lammers what was going on tonight. He stated nothing. I said something had to have happened or I wouldn't have been called. I asked Blaec Lammers if he wanted to tell me about the self-exit note his mother found. Blaec Lammers just lowered his head and refused to answer the question. I asked him if he had any weapons on him. He somewhat smiled and said, maybe. At this time, I escorted Blaec Lammers into the men's room to avoid a crowd gathering and conducted a pat-down of Blaec Lammers. I located a large black-handled kitchen knife in his right front pocket. I secured the knife at that time. I then placed Blaec Lammers into handcuffs and escorted him to my patrol car. At this time, Supervisor McIntyre arrived. Supervisor McIntyre and I spoke to William Lammers and Patricia Lammers. It was decided to transport Blaec Lammers to CMH ER for a 96-hour involuntary psychiatric evaluation. Once we had arrived at CMH, Blaec Lammers refused to speak to the triage nurse. He was then escorted back to his treatment room. Blaec Lammers continued to refuse to speak to the nurse and doctor. After he was changed into a hospital gown, Blaec Lammers finally spoke to Supervisor McIntyre. I was standing outside of the treatment room when Supervisor McIntyre motioned for me to enter the room. After I was in the room, Supervisor McIntyre told Blaec Lammers to tell me exactly what he had told him. Blaec Lammers stated that he had been watching the movie Halloween and then got his Halloween mask and knife and then drove to Walmart and began looking for an easy victim. Blaec Lammers decided this clerk was to be his victim. Blaec Lammers stated the clerk was walking into the storeroom and he was following him with the intention of unaliving him. Blaec Lammers stated his adrenaline would be high and he would have kept unaliving people basically until we stopped him. I then completed an affidavit supporting the mental evaluation. I then returned to the sheriff's office and booked in the Halloween mask and kitchen knife as evidence. At the time of this report, there's no further information. Now, this next part of the incident report is coming from the other officer that was on site. This officer wrote, "Prior to my arrival, Deputy Oral advised me he had the subject in custody. I made contact with Deputy Oral at the north entrance of Walmart. Deputy Oral showed me a butcher knife he had located on the subject and advised me the subject was also carrying a mask. William and Patricia Lammers advised their son, Blaec Lammers, had been diagnosed with depression in January of 2009 while they lived in Nebraska. They both advised that they had left the residence to feed a neighbor's cat, and when they returned, Blaec Lammers' vehicle was gone. Patricia Lammers advised she had located a note on his desk in his room that made her concerned. At this point, I advised Deputy Oral to transport Blaec Lammers to the CMH ER for a 96-hour mental evaluation. Upon arrival at the ER, Blaec Lammers would not speak with anyone. I assisted Blaec Lammers in changing into the hospital gown. Afterward, Blaec Lammers would not speak with the ER nurse. I again spoke with Blaec Lammers, and he began to speak with the ER nurse. After the ER nurse spoke with Blaec Lammers, he came out and took William and Patricia Lammers to another room to speak with them. I then entered into the room and asked Blaec Lammers if he wanted to talk about anything. Blaec Lammers advised me he would speak with me. I asked Blaec Lammers to tell me how he ended up at Walmart with a butcher knife in his pocket and why he was carrying around a mask. Blaec Lammers advised he had been watching the movie Halloween. And the character Michael Myers was unaliving people. And that got him to thinking. Blaec Lammers advised he then left his residence after his parents had gone to a neighbor's. Blaec Lammers advised he drove to a Walmart to find a target. Blaec Lammers advised while at Walmart he had located a clerk in the electronics department. Blaec Lammers advised he had been at Walmart for about 2.5 hours before he was contacted by the deputy. I asked Blaec Lammers what he had done during that time. Blaec Lammers advised he watched the clerk, observed him starting to go into the storeroom. Blaec Lammers advised he began to follow the clerk toward the storeroom. I asked Blaec Lammers what he was going to do. Blaec Lammers advised he was going to unalive the clerk. I asked Blaec Lammers what he was going to do after he unalived the clerk. Blaec Lammers advised his adrenaline would have been high and he would have kept unaliving until he was stopped. I asked Blaec Lammers what stopped him from carrying out the plan. Blaec Lammers advised he heard his name called over the PA system and he heard his dad holler at him asking him what he was doing. I informed Deputy Orrell of the statement Blaec Lammers had made. Blaec Lammers did advise Deputy Orrell and the ER nurse the same as he had advised me. I then left the CMH ER and made contact with Bolivar PD and advised them of the information obtained from Blaec Lammers. I also contacted Sheriff Steve Bruce and advised him of the situation. The managers of Walmart were advised of the situation, and Bolivar PD requested video of Blaec Lammers while he was in the store. At this time, no further action was taken from me. So that is the full report from the situation. And what I see that wound up happening on the incident report is that it resulted in a 96-hour mental evaluation hold in the hospital. That was it. And it does align a lot with what his mother stated was there was a lot of psychiatric holds that would happen. He'd be released with, some new diagnosis, medication, whatever. And this was a consistent cycle for him and the help that she would try to get. There's a frequent thing that we see with his parents trying to intervene, and kudos at least to the parents for trying. They clearly were on top of trying to get help. Timing is of the essence in these cases. The way that these parents stepped in and were able to track their son down and stop things before things did happen is a miracle in itself. This did take out longer than I did to realize. So I'm going to read I'm going to make another video for the 2012 incident regarding the Twilight Walmart, and regarding the Twilight movie and another Walmart incident where he wound up in prison. So I will see you over in that one. Thank you so much for tuning into The Light, where we shed light on these things. It is your first time here, please make sure that you are following me for more updates on this case and many others that I do cover. As always, be kind, love one another, stay safe, and I will see you all in the next one.